I guess the main purpose of this video is I just want to create a record of some of my experiences over the last year of living at Akamari Retreat Centre in La Paz in Bolivia. Just a quick recap, about 4 years ago I left New Zealand on a bit of a spiritual quest, I guess. I had, at that stage I had decided to leave my wife, and our children were pretty much grown up, and I left my job and stopped drinking and put a backpack on and sort of just wandering around the world, basically following my heart, going where I felt like I should go. I found myself in South America at the end of 2018 and doing an ayahuasca retreat in the middle of the Amazon. And sort of I never had any intention of coming to this part of the world, but that's the way life was. And so I left, and at the beginning of 2019 for a few months, or 7 or 8 months, and then came back again in the end of 2019. Basically lived in Lima for a little bit, in Cusco I should say, in the Sacred Valley, and then Pisac, actually, a town called Pisac, and then spent some time in Ecuador, a couple of months there, and then February 2020 was in another retreat in the Amazon in Peru, and ended up getting caught up in all the COVID lockdowns and things, and ended up at the end of my retreat having to stay in the jungle for a bit longer than what I thought, and then sort of managed to get to Lima and spend 5 months in Lima, unable to travel back to New Zealand because of the restrictions that the New Zealand government imposed. And then November of 2020 I managed to leave Peru and came to Sacharuna Retreat Centre. And there's two centres. There's one, Akamari, which is in La Paz, which is in the Andes, which is where I am now, and the other one is in the Amazon, in the jungle, sort of about 12-14 hours north of La Paz by bus. So ended up spending some time in the jungle, and then came back and spent sort of a month or so in the Andes, and then we did a couple of pilgrimages in between, and then ended up back in the jungle again. And so ended up doing a total of 4.5 months on a retreat, and then went back to Peru for a couple of months, and then decided to come back to Bolivia in about May last year, and just coming on as a volunteer. I've been doing some volunteering work for Sacharuna, mainly on the business side and marketing side of things, and then I thought I'd come back and perhaps get involved in some of the other parts of the business, of the centre. So came back here, and in May last year, within about 2 or 3 weeks of getting here, I ended up getting COVID. There's actually 5 of us, or 5 of us that shared a joint, and we little smoke, and we all ended up getting COVID. And at the end of that, that's a whole sort of story unto itself, but popping out at the end of that, I sort of had the realisation that I needed to move out and just get some time on my own. So I moved into Sapucachi in town, in sort of central La Paz, for 3 months. Got an apartment there and an Airbnb, and went from living in the mountains with beautiful views to living in the city, and really enjoyed it. Experienced a different type of person, Bolivian, the city people, and got to explore the city, and got to have some time on my own, which I really needed. So around about that time, some friends of mine left me. They had a cat, and they'd been staying with me, and they were going away, and they asked if I could look after the cat for a month or so, and so that was fine. Then I've been in town for about 2.5, 3 months, and I kind of had this sense that it was time to leave, but I was sort of procrastinating, and I woke up one morning and the cat had completely destroyed the bathroom, and it was like, it's definitely this cat, Inti is the cat's name, and he's definitely an outdoor cat. And so I got the message, it's time to leave. So it was an Airbnb, so we sort of moved out there, I think 2 or 3 days later, and we moved back to Akamari. So that was September last year. So I was here by myself. The centre was empty. There may have been something going on down in the jungle, up in the jungle, but certainly there was nothing here. There was nobody here at all. I spent the first sort of week with on this property, there's also a sort of a 4-star, 5-star restaurant and some accommodation, as well as a shamanic healing centre, and we were sort of sharing the kitchen for a while, which just doesn't really work out. 2 different sorts of people and things, and it's always sort of boys' problems. So we sort of moved an oven and a few bits and pieces into an old laundry that was here that hadn't been used for a long time. There was all sorts of beautiful insights I got out of that time. It was like, one of them was I could sort of sense this real sort of latent energy that felt like this energy of this place. And I found out later on, actually, just last week, that this place is actually on an energetic ley line. And so the energy kind of felt like it's there, but it wasn't getting used, and it wanted to be used, And it sort of also reflected on, we talked about having a community here, but the reality was that at that time there was no community here really, It was, and after a week of sitting there and sort of really noticing that nothing much had changed, the laundry kitchen still looked as bad as it did, a week ago. And I thought to myself, well, the community has to start somewhere, and so let's start with me. And so, you can start with a community of one. So I, first of all, there was a whole lot of things that kind of happened at the same time. The first one was I had been left, literally dropped the responsibility of looking after two llamas, and a horse, and two dogs and a cat. I had never, particularly the big animals, I'd never worked with big animals before, and I initially found myself, the guy who was looking after them during the weekends, he sort of left on the Monday and sort of walked up the driveway waving, saying goodbye. And so I was kind of like in a bit of a state of shock to begin with, a lot of fear around the big animals and things, the horse particularly, and sort of sulked for the first day and sort of, resented being left this responsibility and things. And when I worked through that and let all that stuff go, I realised, actually, if I don't look after these animals, no one's going to look after them. And so I let go of my resistance, worked through it all, and you have, gone from really resisting the idea to really just, wow, the gifts that I've learned from working with these animals has been unbelievable. We'll go and meet them shortly. Big gift, for example, is selflessness, learning that, because, we don't eat the animals here. The animals are not here to be eaten. They're just here to live their lives. And so there's nothing, I wasn't going to get anything out of looking after the animals. So once I worked through my resistance of not wanting to do the job, then sort of what came out of that was this beautiful, just this feeling of love. It's kind of like, it wasn't about me anymore. It was just about getting on and doing what needed to be done, and these animals needed to be looked after. And so, I was here, so I looked after them, and completely different experience, not having the resistance, just being able to go with it and flow with it and enjoy it. And then suddenly there's all these gifts that come in. You start to see things like just the way the animals are, how still they are, but also how present they are, and alert and aware. At first I thought that the horse was going to be the animal in charge. It turned out that it was actually the smallest, youngest llama who was actually in charge. So if I learnt, quite quickly that if I hold on to the llama, whose name's MacGyver, the brown one, then the other llama and the horse follow, generally speaking. And so, that suddenly made my life a lot easier. I was sort of trying to get the horse to go, where I wanted to go, and then the llama's just taking off, going where they wanted to go. I could see that there was this little llama has some sort of influence over the other animals. So I had a beautiful experience the other night where I was about 9 o'clock at night and I just couldn't sort of rest. It felt restless, and it was around about a full moon, and so I just went up and walked up to the top of the paddock where I had the horse out, Bronco, and I bought a brush for him. He'd been sort of neglected quite a lot. Started brushing him by the light of the moon. It was like the most beautiful, amazing experience. I mean, he loves it. He just stands there and just really loves it. And so I'm going to introduce that as a new activity at Sacharuna, so horse brushing by moonlight. So yeah, there's been many other gifts like that, and I think really the lesson for me has been able to notice the resistance and then work through letting that go, and then once I do that, there's this beauty, this magic that just sort of emanates out. Suddenly it's a whole different experience, simply by dropping my resistance to what was going on. So yeah, I mean, and I've had so many experiences in the last year like that, like quite confronting things that I've had, really felt in my mind felt I had no choice but to work through. So, and the other big project has been the garden, which we're in at the moment. And well, actually, before the garden, I realised that the kitchen was just a complete. What isn't a kitchen? It was just a shambles and not a nice place to be in. So I decided that I was going to start a project up through a little not-for-profit I've got called Smiling Hearts, and that sponsors community projects. So I went out and bought a whole lot of paint and brushes and things, and a volunteer turned up, which was great. And so we pulled everything out and spent a few days just stripping back and sanding and painting the whole kitchen, and then which completely transformed it, obviously, a nice lick of paint. And then we managed to get some shelving put in there, and we moved the fridge out from the other kitchen and started to transform it from a laundry into a kitchen. And then over the last couple of months, we've put tiles up, as you'll see later on, and also done some sign writing on the side of the building, so people actually know what it is we do. There's a lot of people come to the restaurant every weekend, and so that seems like an obvious thing to do. So yeah, now it's become a place where it's sort of the hub for Sacharuna. It's got a nice feel. People can chill out on the couch. They can just sit around and have a cup of tea. That's our area, so it gives us some separation from the other business that's going on here. And for me, I can remember at the time thinking, I'm going to do something. What is it I'm going to do? If I want things to be different, I need to get off my ass and do something, because there's no one else here to do anything. And so I thought, I thought to myself, well, to me, the heart of the home has always been the kitchen. So that seemed like the obvious first project to start on, is to really build that heart, and the sort of the heart of the centre. Okay, so welcome to our Sacharuna Akamari kitchen. So as I sort of said in the introduction, this originally was an old laundry, and we sort of moved into here, I guess, about a year ago, but it was only sort of half done. We sort of moved an oven in and a table, and that was about it, and so it was still really just a laundry. So I got to thinking, as one of the first projects I'd get on, as I mentioned, was to sort of help transform it into a kitchen, and we'll go and have a look at some of the work that we did there shortly. So this project is part of Smiling Hearts, which is a not-for-profit I've started up a couple of years ago, and so the money we get from the Smiling Hearts goes into community projects. So this was in a community project, so we bought the paint and brushes and things and started the process off. The other thing we've done recently, it's not finished yet, but it's just painted the outside. We have a restaurant down that way, and there's probably 70-80 people a week coming down on the weekends, so we're just starting to advertise the shamanic centre and what we do. So we'll go and take a look inside. So welcome to the kitchen. As I said, so the first that I thought I had about this place is it's the heart of the home. So the first sort of job we did was to paint all the walls and strip them all down. All the paint was falling off, and strip it all down and repaint it in about 2 or 3 different coats. And I chose white because you'll see some photos shortly where people want to encourage people to sort of draw things on the walls and things like that. And we brought this fridge up from down in the old kitchen so we could actually get our food easily. And just set up this, as you can see, this still is just a laundry sink, of course, but it's now a functional kitchen area, and painted the floors, and there's a couch over on the other side and a table and stuff. So we've got a small number of people here. It's a great chill out place and hang out, and it sort of fits in with our sort of style of people that come here, a little bit more relaxed and things like that. So yeah, it's a really lovely space. And just one other thing I did while I was here was, in New Zealand we smoke a lot of fish, we have a lot of fish, we smoke a lot of fish, so when I came here I noticed there was a lot of trout here, and so I ended up smoking some, and people really liked it because it's something quite unique. They haven't had that here before like this anyway, and ended up making a smoked trout mousse and selling it in packets, and making chowders and pies and empanadas and all sorts of things. So, and ended up selling some of it actually to some of the shops. So that was a real fun thing to do, and hopefully that this will be something that one of the guys here in particular is quite keen about. So it could be a a little way till we could sell it through here and earn some money for the volunteer program. So yeah, it's our logo that we came up with. So Just Creature is the name of it, and this is the moose. So yeah, a fun little thing to do in a different country. And I really feel that is what it's become, and now it's kind of got of its life its own on, and we've just had a new chef or volunteer that's going to turn up and cook for the next while, and she's come in and added her touch to it, which is beautiful, and it's just nice to see it kind of evolving. I'm not holding on to it. It's not my kitchen. It just, I kind of feel like my job was to sort of catalyze something and to get just to show and lead the way a little bit, I guess, and to show what's possible. So yeah, I feel really, and then the next little project from there, hopefully someone might pick up is, because of the restaurant, there are a lot of people coming past in the weekends, and just to open up a little shop in there to start, and then use the income from there to help pay, with the volunteers and the trainee shamans and things. So yeah, that was the kitchen, and the last project I sort of started to mention was the garden. So after sort of getting the kitchen sorted out and getting the animals kind of sorted out, I thought, well, I've spent quite a bit of time in here. In fact, a friend of mine and I did a mushroom ceremony in here in the last year. This space had been, there's been different times when it's been really flourishing and alive, and a lot of time when it's just been dead and just not completely dead, but just dry and not looked after, not watered, and it's eventually most of everything just shriveled up and died. It's extremely hot up here. Sort of thought to myself, well, it's like the kitchen. To me, the garden's like the extension to the kitchen. So it really it sort of seemed like a natural next project. So sort of got in here, and I've never actually planted anything, grown anything from seed in my life. I spent quite a bit of time in the garden helping my ex-wife, but mainly just, digging holes and things, and not really engaged in the process, or more of a mental way instead of a sort of spiritual, emotional way. Like looking after the animals, when I first thought about doing the garden, I had a huge amount of resistance coming up. And I don't know where that was coming from, but could have been all sorts of different things. But I just used my various tools that I've got, and I also, living in a plant medicine retreat centre, have the option to go to ayahuasca ceremonies, which is obviously very useful for cleaning resistance and things like that as well, removing those things. So I found myself just using my tools to work through the resistance, and started slowly doing work on it. So the first thing was it was completely overgrown, and we just needed to clear all the weeds out and things. So I got a few people together, and we spent an afternoon doing that. Yeah, basically got back to what was left over, and that was still alive, which wasn't a lot, but there was some stuff alive. So that started looking after them as a starting point, and from there I went out and brought some seeds. So a lot of the seeds under here, and we'll see as we go around and take some video later on. But sort of started growing seeds, and again, remember, I've never actually done this in my life before, and I could have Googled it and found out more about how to do things, and I just kind of thought, no, I'm just going to go with my intuition, just go with what feels right, and sort of follow that. And I did ask for a bit of advice from some of the local guys on a couple of things, but yeah, so it's been and wow, what an amazing experience. Once that resistance is gone, and actually then I can get fully engaged with the process, and there's a real gift in actually growing something from planting the seed. And a friend of mine gave me a good tip. She says, you've got to treat them like they're babies. Like you've got to really look after them. So that was like, so I sort of went in with that attitude, and basically everything that I've planted seed, not everything, but a lot of it's growing. There's the radishes down here that were grown for seed, and beetroot and things, and other lettuce for seed, and cabbage. So yeah, about 2 weeks ago, I ate my first radish, which was the first vegetable that I'd grown from scratch, from seed, and that was a really beautiful experience. Really, and I'm using the manure. We've got the horse and the llamas, of course, so I've been mixing that in here, and they get, when I do the weeding, they get the weeds from the garden, and obviously as we start to grow more things, they'll get more food out of here, and so it's really experiencing that kind of real cycle of life, and being part of it, and just help facilitate, do my little piece in it. So you're a real deep, lovely connection with the land, just really in Pachamama. I'll come out here and spend hours in the afternoon, just doing things, pottering around, and really, really enjoy it. And it's been such a gift having that experience, Okay, so I just wanted to go through and talk about some of the plants. So this is the Datura plant that the head shaman, actually, this is his row here. He brings along kind of strange stuff that I need to try and grow. So some of it's growing really well, some of it's sort of died off, but I got the seeds out of here and they've sprouted up and they're growing amazingly well. So yeah, no idea what these plants are, so I guess we'll find out at some point in time. And this is just some local spinach that I grew. Oh, these gardens here are all new. This has all been dug up, so these didn't exist before. I planted, as you'll see, a whole lot of beetroot here, and so there's heaps of it all over the place. And the idea here is to start selling the juices through the shop, like do beetroot and ginger juice and things. So that's it. So we got some onions in here and some spring onions starting to go. Lots more beetroot at different stages. So I mentioned before that I'd never grown anything from seed, so a lot of these beetroot actually, and the radishes up there, you'll see all come from seed. These were here when I sort of took the garden over. There's about the only things that sort of survived. Silver beet, so but it's going really well now, and watering a bit of llama poo, and yeah, I love it. Lettuces and cabbages, again all grown from seed, and then the radishes down here, so they're really nice actually. So that's the first thing that I actually have eaten, grown from scratch, that I've eaten myself, so really lovely experience. Found some interesting plants and covered in weeds and things. I've no idea what those are, different succulents and stuff. These flowers up here really seem to like growing in here, so that adds a bit of colour. So we're going to be putting some more flowers in, or one of the other people is going to be putting more flowers in. So this is a plant, I can't remember the name of it now, but we used it in the tea mescal. Just an amazing scent, I can't describe it, beautiful. So yeah, we use the stems in the part of in the water that goes onto the tea mescal, and yeah. And there's sort of a lot of mint in here, and parsley and thyme and things, and some more interesting little things I discovered at the back there, found, so which have survived, which is good. And this plant here, I'm sorry, I'm really useless with the names, but this has another very distinctive smell to it, and they use it in making lots of sauces. Wakatai, I think it's called, yeah, and it grows. It grows crazy, which is great. So these are the beetroots that I actually managed to. They were actually survived from the last time this was a garden, so they were pretty hardy and they're growing pretty well. So over here we've got some lavender, which I've just let go for the bees and stuff. But that's beautiful. Really nice to dry and smoke actually, or mixed with tobacco. And this was another plant that I found down here, another succulent, which uncovered, which is really nice. Beautiful. And some of these herbs survived actually too, so they've all come back now. Lots of oregano and thyme and stuff. So yeah, and aloe vera that's trying to get going. I think they'll survive. And we've got some bay leaves and chilies and things. And in here is one of the shaman's seeds that I've gone and taken out and planted, and they're going really well, so be curious to see what they actually are. And here's some of the seedlings. So this is all capsicum, baby capsicum, so this will be ready to plant sometime. But yeah, so all these gardens were here originally, and these ones were, but all this is all new down here, and all this is new too, all in here. So we've got lots of lettuce again, and
yes, okay.
And yes, Savoya, is it? No.
Spring onions?
Spring onions, yeah. Yeah, more of them. So yeah, because there's a restaurant here as well, so it makes, and also with the shamanic centre, it makes sense to grow lots of one thing rather than lots of little things. So well, that's what I figured anyway. But yeah, and then just if this is areas basically just to plant as we thin out the ones that are growing, like the small ones over there. We'll move over here and replant in here. So there's going to be a lot of food available here in the next month or two, which will be great. And as well as doing all of that, we've been working on the roof and tidying things up and putting some doors in, and yeah, so, and we're putting a self-watering system in the next couple of weeks, so that should be good, and hopefully it means it'll survive. So yeah, so that's the garden project. Aha. Gracias. Okay, so this is the Kiva. This is where we hold ayahuasca and San Pedro Waichuma ceremonies. We're not going to go in, but I've spent, I don't know, hours and hours and hours in here in various ceremonies, mainly ayahuasca ceremonies, and it's an extremely powerful healing space. It's actually in the shape of a womb, so the bottom of the womb is down here, top up there, and it's got very unique energies in there. There's a huge big oven in there which we have to fire and close the doors, so there's no light comes out during the ceremonies. But yeah, but I'm very grateful for this space, and as I said, I don't know how many countless ceremonies in here, and done a lot of healing, a lot of cleaning, experienced a lot of love and light and a lot of darkness and all sorts of different things. And so I really honour this space, and I know I'll be back here one day doing more ceremonies. So yeah, aho. Okay, so this is Tea Mescal, so otherwise also known as Sweat Lodge. So we generally have these sort of every couple of Sundays every month, sort of in the morning, and then we have them after the San Pedro Waichuma ceremonies, which generally finish about 4 or 5, and then we have a Tea Mescal. So there's a pile of volcanic rocks over there, and we create a massive fire and heat the rocks up on the fire so they're red hot. The Tea Mescal gets covered in blankets. People go in, the shaman's generally sitting down here with a big pot of water mixed with some of the herbs like the one we looked at in the garden, rhubarb, and we close down the door, and we have 4 rounds, one to each of the 4 directions, and so and he pours the water onto the rocks, and of course it creates a steam which gets very hot, and so this is why it's just called a sweat lodge. Extremely cleansing and cleaning, and very powerful experience. And when the first round's finished, then we open the door and let a bit of fresh air in, and then bring in the rocks for the next round and the next pot of liquid, and away we go. So very beautiful experience, and extremely, especially after a San Pedro ceremony, you get out and the sun's coming up, and it's just absolutely just one of the most stunning, beautiful experiences I've ever had. So highly recommend in Sweat Lodge Tea Mescal if you get the opportunity. So gracias. Yeah. So this is one of my meditation spots out here, especially when I'm working in the garden. Just come out here, it's just, there's something about the energy of the wind blowing up the valley, the canyons there. I mean, you can't see it too much here, but those canyons are huge once you get down and you walk down the river. There's a walk that I've done quite often where you walk down an old Mayan trail down here, and you end up coming out down at the river where the start of those canyons are, and you walk through the canyons for about an hour, and then you come out on the other side and you walk to along a road to a little town you can see in the distance here, Palka. And it's a really beautiful walk. Energy down there is really special, but yeah, there's something about these big open spaces, these canyons and things, and the stillness, up here is just amazing. It's just really lovely experience just to be able to and we were at 3,000, almost 4,000 meters, so I guess not a lot of life up here, but there is, it's just different. You just need to know where to look. So yeah, Welcome to the Sun Moon Dance arena, I guess you could call it. So this is a North American ceremony that's held here once a year. It's held all around the world in different times, but we hold ours at such arena over the equinox from the 18th of December. And so in the middle here we've got the totem, and around the outside you can see are these wooden frames, and these frames are covered in plastic on the roof and in the back during the dance, and everyone has their own sort of slot. I was over that way last year, and basically we sleep outside for 3 nighs. There's no water, no food, and we dance. All the men are all dressed in dresses, and all the women, so we're all sort of equal, and we just dance forward to the totem, and then we have to dance backwards but facing the totem and go back. And so there's a band, local Bolivian band that play, and so yeah, and you can have a rest and things like that. You don't have to be, and there's, the dancing stops at 10 o'clock at night, so we have a rest until 6 o'clock in the morning and things. But the first year, I've done it twice now. The first year was my real challenge. Well, not really challenge, but I was, had this in the back of my mind about no water, no food for 3 days. But I got through that actually with no problems at all. And this last time I did it, at the end of last year, because that wasn't even an issue for me anymore, I had a deeper experience. So I'm looking forward to finding someone to do it this year again, actually. So one of the real deep experiences I had in my last ceremony last year was everyone was sort of resting, and I sort of came out and kneeled in front of the totem here. And I had this golden snake. Well, first of all, actually, I started to see all these mandalas, golden mandalas, and then I had this golden snake come down, I could see it in my third eye, and that was, still not sure actually what that meant, but it was a very powerful experience. And but yeah, it's certainly, probably one of the more challenging things that I've done, but certainly yeah, it's given me just everyone together, the same energy. It's all about dancing, moving into the centre to release our light, and as we move back we'll release our darkness, and when we move back we receive the light. So a lot of healing's done, a lot of people heal a lot of things, and it's just a really, really lovely, beautiful experience. So yeah, it's the Sun Moon Dance. Oh. So yeah, I guess in summary, this last year has really, I feel, talking to a friend a little while ago, I feel like sort of it really enabled me to deepen into myself as a spiritual being, and really starting to connect with what it means to be a spiritual being and having human experience, at a deeper level. I'm guessing it's an ongoing process forever, but and so these sorts of experiences have been just really beautiful. And yeah, actually, just before finishing off, I guess there's actually a couple of other stories that sort of experiences that popped into my mind, I'd like to share and record. And one was actually around a relationship I got into about a year ago in Bolivia with a Bolivian woman, and when we first sort of met, we agreed that we just wanted to be friends with some intimacy, keep it fairly relaxed. We've both been in long-term relationships, and we just wanted to take things really slowly, and so that worked out well. And then after a few months, I sort of realised I was getting a bit sort of attached to, that was such a nice situation, and I kind of wanted more of it. And so spent a bit of time working through that and letting that go. And then I had this experience that where I kind of felt that my friend was sort of holding, she was letting me get close, but only so close. And that would kind of manifest in, for example, she wouldn't invite me around to her house, or wouldn't contact me, things like this. And so I sort of thought, well, that it was really important to me in a relationship, in sort of friendship, whatever you want to call it. So I went through, she came around here one day, and once I'd sort of stopped projecting all my stuff onto her, because then I felt rejected. once I sort of let go of my rejection, I was able to sit down with her and have a conversation from my heart about our relationship and where I was at, and all I did was I shared my experience, which was what I just said before. I kind of felt that she was holding me back, and here were some examples of where I felt that was happening, and she burst into tears, and because it was her truth as well, it was my truth, it was her truth as well. And what I learned, and we actually ended up splitting up for a while, and then that was her decision, and then I won't go into all the detail now, but we ended up coming back together again. But the real lesson in that for me was the power in that was actually, one was learning to again let go my triggers and projections before engaging, and then once I did that, then there was some truth in that I wanted to express, because I wanted to be in a relationship where I felt like it was a two-way thing, and I don't want any more than that. I wasn't asking to marry her or be the father of her children or anything like that, or move in with her. So it was a really lovely experience, actually, just being in relationships, someone having the courage to work through my own stuff, and then have the courage to speak my own truth, and then actually seeing it land in a really beautiful way, and then eventually get itself sorted out. It was really, so that was been a really lovely experience. And the other one that just comes to mind is when I went to the jungle a couple of visits ago. I went down as a volunteer, and I was given the job of cleaning, and all this resistance came up around doing the cleaning. I was like, so I sort of, after a while, I came up with this cunning idea to create a roster, and we're all going to do different jobs in the cleaning things, and I wasn't going to do the whole thing, blah, blah, blah. And so when I realized that I was in that space, I realized I was triggered, and so I was able to, it was a really strong trigger, a lot of resistance coming up. So I decided in that moment that I was going to do all the cleaning myself. And so that's what I did for 3 weeks. And it, was quite a struggle to begin with, but slowly just, again, working through the resistance that was coming up. In the end, the last day I was there, I was just reflecting the other day that, I got up, I did the meditation, I cooked the breakfast, I cleaned the kitchen, swept the dining rooms area, swept in the dormitory, outside the dormitory, the toilets, cleaned the toilets out, did all the cleaning. And it just went like that, just like it might have taken me an hour and a half, a couple of hours or something, but it just went, and there was no resistance at all. And it was like really, it was just like beautiful experience, It's like, and then, just really in the moment with the jungle around and the animals and, and the energy there. And if I hadn't worked through that resistance, I wouldn't have had that experience. So, so this year has been, been extremely grateful. I mean, there's a lot more experiences like that I could share, but just a real different experience of life, a different way of experiencing life. And I'm heading off back to New Zealand in a couple of weeks' time, and so first time in 3 years I've been home. And, it's going to be quite curious going back, but one of the reasons I'm filming this is so that I can remind myself of where I've been. I mean, hopefully my plan is to hold on to the experiences and the feelings that I've got. But we'll see that matrix can be quite strong at times. So, but it will be what it will be. So I think that's what I really would like to share. I think I'm really extremely grateful. And I guess I'm extremely also grateful to myself for having the faith and the trust, and just to follow my heart, and go with observing that the cats destroyed the bathroom, trying to send me a message, like having that awareness and being able to live life from my senses rather than my mind, my thoughts, what feels right.